Hi, folks. This is Louis Hertham, the original Peter Abernathy. Hell is empty and all the devils are here on the Shat on TV Westworld podcast with Roger, Gene, and Big B.
Welcome back to Shat on TV Westworld Edition, the unofficial podcast companion piece for the hit HBO television series Westworld. I am one of your three hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene Lyons.
This is it, the center of the maze.
And this is our fan email episode where we look back on this month's collection of fan emails and a little segment we like to call the Westworld Telegraph. Guys, this is our March edition. The emails have started to slow down. The Telegraph isn't quite as busy as it was during the season, but we're still getting a few trickling in here or there.
Yeah, my wife goes, "You guys still get emails for Westworld?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "About what?" I said, "People still have theories." I said, "People go back and rewatch, but it's not as much as it was before, and it looks like it might be quite a bit longer."
I mean, I do worry that people will forget about this show by the time it comes out in October 2018. They had a great momentum going with the TV show, and I'm hoping that what happens with Westworld is that we have 2 years to really marinate that desire to see it again and then go crazy. But I think they're going to be starting from the ground up. What we'll likely see is people who catch on to maybe season 2 and then go back and watch season 1. But I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people give up on the show or just forget about it by then. Who knows what huge things could happen between now and fall of 2018. It worries me a little bit.
I also have a morbid fear. People die all the time. You have a lot of the cast that's up there in age. You know, accidents happen. Who was it who recently died? There was an actor was it in Game of Thrones that died?
Yeah, one of the giants. The actor who played the giant, he's like 7'7". He died.
He was the tallest man in England, I believe.
So God forbid we wait 2 years. They do all these extensive, writings for season 2, and then you have a key character. Either you don't know, is somebody going to get picked up on another series? Is somebody going to become an actor and they big in the movies? God forbid somebody dies.
Yeah,
what would you do?
No, well, let's be clear about this. If Star Wars Rogue One has taught us anything, it's that actors no longer die. You can use any face CGI'd on anybody that you want nowadays. So I think we're going to be all right.
Fingers crossed.
But so if you've never listened to the Westworld Telegraph, essentially what we do is we take the top emails of the month. So what we're doing is during the season, we do this once a week. But in the off season, because we want to keep Westworld in the forefront of our fans' minds and keep our feed current on iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts, we do this once a month. So listen, if you're listening to this, if you're still a fan of Westworld, if you got some news, some notes, some theories, some thoughts on the show, email us. Our email address is hosts@shatontv.com. Again, that email address is hosts@shatontv.com. So we have 5 emails to go through, but then I also thought maybe we'd kick off the March Telegraph with some news and notes that's happened, some things, and I think this might be a good little segment to do. The first news and notes that I want to talk about, the Golden Globes have happened since our February Westworld Telegraph, and the March one, HBO went in. Again, leading all networks, 14 nominations. Westworld was up there. They went home, not only Westworld empty-handed, but HBO did not win any Golden Globes. Is the Golden Globes just bullshit at this point?
I remember when we started out the season, we were talking about Westworld and what we thought HBO would do, and we said HBO is the gold standard. And we used the Golden Globes as one of those facts to back up our theory that, there's no way HBO could really screw this up. But yeah, that not only did they not take home a Golden Globe, they didn't take home any major award show. 26 years it's been since HBO's been shut out. Back in 91 was the last time that they came home with no major awards. Yeah. So not even Westworld, the fact that HBO got shut out, I thought it was a pretty good season of Game of Thrones. I thought there was a lot of other things that could have won. A little bit shocking.
One thing to note, I've been kind of thinking about this a lot lately, is, people ask us why we don't review shows that are on Netflix or Amazon and point to them as really quality television. And Netflix really has stepped up its game. I mean, they're putting out really good content. I know, Raj, you don't like the OA. I thought that was a pretty solid show. The Crown is a pretty solid show. Stranger Things, a lot of people love that show. obviously we can't, because doing a weekly podcast on something that you could binge watch would be suicide. It's interesting because HBO is making it shows based on some pretty high aspirations and really taking a stab at some dangerous things. Like they really do push the envelope in a lot of ways with Westworld, with Game of Thrones. If you would have told people Game of Thrones is going to be a hit based on the subject matter, I guess, in the environment that it went out in at the time that it was launched, not a lot of people would believe you. And it's, dragons and shit like that. But it surprised everyone. And on the flip side, a lot of streaming services, they have the benefit of tons and tons of data. They know HBO is kind of late to the streaming game. Netflix is known for years. Why do you think it's so cheap? They know exactly when you hit play, when you hit pause, what your demographic is, when you stop watching a show, what episodes you watch over and over again. So they can really get down to an art what you want to see more of. And unfortunately, you would think an award show like the Golden Globes would reward art instead of something that just pleases people.
But also, you're talking about data. Because the streaming services are contained on their own servers and delivered directly, there is no rating. There is no Nielsen's. They don't release the numbers. No one knows unless Netflix or the other streaming services let people know. So they have that advantage. I don't think this is a drop in HBO quality or a statement of what they're putting out right now. It has to be just the surplus of amazing content being created. You use, the O.J. Simpson American Crime Story. For FX to put out something that good, that is normally a pay cable show. So I don't think it's necessarily a knock on HBO. It's just that they're it's like you go back to the early days of the NBA when the Celtics won all those titles.
Right.
There was like 8 teams. Who the hell are you beating?
Listen, have you guys ever watched Adam Ruins Everything?
Yeah.
Okay, Adam Ruins Everything. I'm going to give a little plug. It's one of my favorite shows, and he also does a podcast that he goes more in depth into the subject matter. If you haven't watched it, basically he takes a subject and really dives into it with factual information that he cites, there on screen. Anyway, he did a whole show on award shows and how basically they're just bullshit. Right? They don't really mean anything. It's all politicking. It's all who, delivers the most sponsorship and, does the best behind the scenes kind of. And the Golden Globes, he said, is the worst purveyor of this. The amount of money that you can spend to buy an award. And I feel like that's what Netflix and FX have done. The People versus O.J. Simpson was schlock. It was shit. If you want an honest exploration into that whole thing, go watch the documentary that just won an Oscar that ESPN did. It's fucking phenomenal. You compare that versus what they did on FX, it's crap. Here you have a show. Westworld was all over the place. There were, 30 podcasts dedicated to Westworld? You couldn't go anywhere without talking about it. The fact that you had a show like that hit mainstream, that was artful, like you said, Gene, and doesn't come away with an award, if it doesn't win anything at the Emmys, we know this shit is rigged.
Yeah, but by that rationale, HBO wouldn't have won every year prior to this. Like, they have a long string of victories.
Oh, yeah.
So you're saying that HBO was buying the wins and then suddenly just stopped?
No, I listen. When I'm sure they bought some awards, but also the quality of HBO shows. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah. So The Crown beat out Westworld. Unfortunately, the Westworld cast, they seem to have a lot of fun at the Golden Globes. There was a lot of pictures. Our boy Ptolemy and Leonardo Nam were having GIF-worthy moments. So that's that. The next thing I want to talk about is cast updates and release date. It does appear, I know we kind of previewed this, the rumor that Ed Harris was going to come back. It does appear he is confirmed to come back in season 2. What do we think about the Man in Black returning?
Well, without him, with him, it tells us we're going forward in the timeline, right? In the sense that if you have him around, you're going to be looking probably at the future. And honestly, a cliffhanger like they had with him positioned where he was relative to the hosts, being wounded and being excited about that notion, it's too much of a cliffhanger to not have him back. Honestly, they would have painted themselves in the corner if he said no. Like, what are you going to do then?
I'm always weary when I hear about actors saying, yes, they're going to return. And you never know to what extent someone will be used. Simply because he's coming back, that could be interpreted as he's going to be there for the full 10. He'll be in half of them. We don't know. That he's involved in the project, I'm happy, but I don't go too crazy about these casting reports until I actually see a more detailed IMDb breakdown of who's in how many episodes. That's just me.
Well, the other thing that was also announced, Casey Bloys, the programming president over at HBO, revealed to Entertainment Weekly that he does not expect a second season until 2018. Originally, the best thought was that, hey, maybe we'll get a Westworld in October of 2017. He's now stating, based on his estimate, it's not going to be until October 2018.
I think it's a risky move. I understand that he wants something to have to, be the heir apparent as Game of Thrones finishes up its series run. 2 years is a long time, and the attention span of the average TV viewer and consumer is becoming shorter and shorter. In 2 years, you're going to have people be like, oh, what was that show about cowboys and robots? It's real easy to lose that audience, and I hope it is that they want to dedicate the time to production and to writing, and not that he's taking it for granted that everyone's going to be sitting around. I know we'll be sitting around, but, will the rest of the, however, 10 million be waiting with us?
Yeah, honestly, from a selfish perspective, this is gonna fuck our day up, man. Like, come on, we're trying to make a living here. We're starving artists. We need our Westworld. What are we gonna do without it? What, are we gonna live on Taboo for the rest of our lives? It's not happening.
Well, we gave a lot of shit to another HBO series, True Detective. True Detective Season 1 was a fucking masterpiece. If you haven't watched True Detective, it was great. Do you feel like because of what happened in True Detective Season 2, that was kind of rushed and wasn't as good of quality? They kind of don't want that same thing to happen. He's quoted as saying, because of how big the world is and what goes shooting into it, he doesn't have a date exactly, but they're going to have to map it out and write the script. So with that in mind, are we willing to delay it another year in exchange for a higher quality?
I say no, and here's why. Season 1 took forever to shoot and reshoot, and there are other shows that have a quicker production schedule that are just as good. So to me, that's a cop-out. I could, again, I come from a newspaper background, and if a reporter were telling me, all the other papers are going to have this out tomorrow, but I'm going to need like 3 days to make it better, and then the story wasn't really that much better. Listen, didn't win any awards. What might work is a model like Game of Thrones, where it's some are released now and some are released later. I would much rather have 2 really short seasons, like a 5-episode season in 2017 and then a 5 in 2018. I could deal with that. I understand that's not how production works, but some sort of way to keep people engaged with it, because they did so much with engagement during the show's run, and then now it feels like they've just kind of abandoned everything's quiet.
As long as it's not done for a strategic reason and it's actually done for a production reason or a product reason, I'm okay with it. But God, 2 years, 24 months.
Well, there's other ways to engage your audience, right? So, when you look at shows like The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, they have like those telltale games where you can play like a story that exists within that world.
Hold on. Walk me through this. Mm-hmm. So how does this video game of William work?
No, it doesn't have to be William. It could be another character that explores Westworld sometime in the 30 years between the time frames that we saw of Westworld, right? You could be a guest in Westworld. You could go and do that. Are you telling me you wouldn't like to create an avatar of a character and then go on a choose your own adventure story within Westworld?
I do. What is this, Grand Theft Auto 5, where I can actually go to the Mariposa and power up?
Red Dead Redemption 2 does come out fall of 2017. So
yeah, exactly.
That
is pretty good. All right. Well,
just rebrand it, make it a tie-in.
That's right.
Red Dead Redemption, sponsored by Westworld?
Well, I think Rockstar has on their social medias made allusions to Westworld. So I know I for one will be buying that. But according to denofgeek.com, the date, even though this isn't knocked down, this isn't confirmed by HBO, they're estimating that season 2 will debut on Sunday, October 7th, 2018. So that's what denofgeek.com. The last story, before we get into the emails, you talk about having a video game, going to the Mariposa and living out your fantasy there. Well, in Barcelona, Spain, it was reported recently that a sex doll brothel has opened. Clients of the agency, for $127 an hour, they can have a sex session with one of 4 big-breasted Lumi dolls. There's a blonde Katie, an Asian-featured Lily, a dark-skinned Liza, and an anime model Aki, who wears blue hair in her ponytails. So what do you think about actually going and living out a real life artificial intelligence sex life in Barcelona, Spain?
Okay, this is a huge mistake because they made one of each. I can tell you right now from having been to strip clubs and just clubs and nightclubs in general, Katie the blonde is going to get all the business. And then you're going to have other ones that are like underused. This isn't an equality thing with sex dolls. This should be portion of the way that people are actually going to use them. The blonde's going to get used way more than anybody else. So just, they need to have 3 Katies and maybe an Aki, and that'd be fine.
I'm old enough to remember when Times Square in New York was all porn theaters. And I used to go there with some of my friends, on a random night where we were in drinking, and you'd stop by the porn theaters. And they had those booths. Now kids today who have, YouPorn and Pornhub and all that.
Yeah.
You would go into a booth, and it was like a closet with a TV. You put some change in, and you could flip through, and you would just do your business. Uh-huh. And it was a horror show. It looked like a Jackson Pollock painting, just all over the walls.
Right.
And whenever you would leave the booth, you'd see the poor dude with the mop bucket.
The jizz mopper?
Yes.
So wait a minute. So are you saying that kids today will never know the shame of leaving one of those booths?
No. They'll never know. It at that point, it wasn't a shame. Because
really?
that's what you had. I mean, you had your stuff at home.
Instead of the privacy of your own home?
Look, another thing, speaking of kids today, I don't know what the situation is in Barcelona, but in Madrid, if you just want to get laid, you just go to the park at night. Like, that's literally all you have to do. I have cousins who lived in Madrid, Spain, and you just go to the park. You can't do it at home because everybody lives with their parents, so you don't want to get in trouble there. But everybody is just banging away at the park. You just kind of show up.
Yeah, well, according to the website, the dolls are disinfected after each use, and clients are required or asked politely to wear condoms. Organizers claim that several sessions with the silicone dolls have already been reserved. So people are reserving their spots now. This seems to be a hit already in the marketplace. We've talked about, the cleanup area in Westworld. These are like real sex dolls, right? However, a sci-fi model that costs approximately $15,000 could be on the market as early as next year, capable of speech and even appearing to express emotion. Is this something that you would partake in? So instead of the lifeless, one-face doll that exists today, what if they could express emotion and they were capable of speech?
No way. I don't know why people are even bothering with these real dolls.
Right.
VR is the next step, buddy. You got to get your headset, you got to get your Oculus Rift, and you just need an attachment that sits on either your glove or your bat. Or What's the other thing they call them? What do they say?
I don't know.
For a woman?
No, the guy and the girl. They say whether you have a
penis or a vagina.
No, come on, Dick. Whether they have like
or a vagina.
Fine. Okay, here.
A unit or a taco?
No, I got you. So whether you have a hot dog or you got a bun, they have an attachment that would sit on yours, and it would just stimulate to match whatever the visuals were.
Okay.
That way, there's no cleanup other than your little silicone attachment.
Yeah.
And you could have any variety of digital entertainment. You could share. You could maybe create your own avatar-like female encounter.
Fuck a shark.
And there's no... There's no need to actually share a physical silicone sex toy with a friend or with thousands of other Barcelonans.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's a robot, like if it's like a Delos, so what you're saying is you don't want to have sex with the first sex robot that comes out. You don't want version 1.0. You want at least version 35.
I want version 0. I don't want any of.
You don't want to have sex with a robot, a lifelike robot. You would rather have VR sex.
I'd rather have sex with my wife.
Well, yeah, I mean, come on.
Whoa. She's not going to listen to this podcast.
Wait a minute. No, I'm just saying, like, all right.
He's saying it's a side piece.
Is it cheating if you have sex with a robot?
No.
Hold on. We discussed this early on. If you start having emotional attachments to it, then it becomes kind of weird and blurry. If it didn't have the personality component, that it was just an inanimate object, like we talked about on our Shat the Movies podcast for The Breakfast Club, that I have a friend who has one of these larger sex toy.
He has half a silicone sex doll is what he has.
He does. He has a lower torso.
He has the lower torso, which is creepier, which is, in my
correct.
opinion.
But that doesn't talk back to you. So as long as there's not that emotional connection, I'm okay with it. But I will not be in line. I will not be pre-ordering any of these.
So to clarify Big D's position, the only attachment you should have to a sex doll is a silicone attachment.
That's right. All right. So with that being said, those are the news and notes that we have. Let's dive into our Westworld Telegraph emails. Big D, turn on the Telegraph. All right, our first Telegraph comes in from Zach. Zach writes, "Hi, Shat team. My name is Zach, and I am emailing you from sunny old England. Yes, England, not Great Britain, and no, it's not actually sunny, sadly. Firstly, I love the show. I picked it up early on in the Westworld series, and it provided a perfect interlude between episodes and fed my addiction crust on the show. I am making some fan art at the moment based on the Westworld series, and I was hoping to ask for some help on creating content. I have made a mock-up and will enclose a visual so you can have a look and see what you think." And of course, he's attached this. "I am basing the series of posters I am making on the 10 episodes, so I'm looking to involve some text for each episode, but I am struggling on the content for this as the typical quotes are fine. But if you have any insight on this, I would love your opinion on what you think are the key characters in each episode, as well as the defining quotes, and even as far as possibly the meanings behind each episode's would be. For example, in the first episode, I believe Dolores is the original, so she would be my key visual, and then the quote would be the start of the revolution of the hosts. These violent delights have violent ends. This being a Shakespeare quote, I enclose the entire verse. I hope this finds you well and keep on chatting." And again, that comes from Zach. So we'll post these on the website and our social media and everything like that. But I got to tell you, first of all, Zach is a pretty good artist here. It's kind of done like almost like in a minimalist sort of way.
Yeah, no, it's definitely some quality stuff. I took a peek at it too, and I think people would be interested in seeing that. I hope we're not too late, Zach, with the suggestions, but I've got a few for you. You guys, did you guys get a chance to take a peek or have any ideas?
Yeah, I definitely am gonna give some feedback on them. HBO had done something officially like this before. Game of Thrones, they went out and I don't remember the artist's name, but they did a similar visual style to this for each episode, but it didn't have the text. And so, for example, it might just have a sword with. I'm not going to give you examples because you're not going to be able to see it. We'll put a link into the show notes. But HBO has done this for Game of Thrones, and they're absolutely amazing. I think doing this for Westworld, we'd be happy to be part of it.
Yeah, not only just us, but my suggestion is let's send this out to the Shat audience or Shat Nation and see, if we get some good feedback and on the episode, see if we can all collectively use a hive mind to help Zach out with this artwork because I think he's on the right path here. This is really cool.
Yeah, this is the way, like we had talked about, keeping people engaged. In our long 2-year hiatus.
HBO, sign us up. Let us do the work for you.
I don't think we can go through all 10 episodes here, but I do have a suggestion for Chestnut for episode 2. I think it'd be really cool. That's when we're first introduced to William and Logan, and having some sort of a black and white thing with the two of them like juxtaposed, I think would be super cool. And somewhere in there, you got to get. Can you imagine how fucked it would be if these poor assholes ever remembered what the guests do to them? And with a rebellion, I think it would be really cool.
Yeah, we also obviously one of them's got to include Ptolemy and Leonardo, Felix and Sylvester as well. So this is an ongoing thing. Again, we'll communicate everything through our social media channels. Zach, thank you so much for sending in this, and this is really cool. Our next Westworld Telegraph comes in from LT. LT writes in, "I listened to the Ptolemy Slocum podcast. He was a blast. And the recaps. I look forward to following some of the developments for Westworld with you guys in the next 18-month hiatus. On that note, I saw an interview of Joy and Jonah Nolan, and he referred to the second theme park as Shogun World, not Samurai World. For what it's worth, and definitely not Shanghai World. Whose crazy idea was that? Terracotta Warriors. Thanks for doing the podcast. It's a labor of love for you guys, and it comes through in your voices. Hope you share some of the Boulay. What is Boulay? Bullet Rye. Got it. And that's cheers. That's from LT. So I think what she's saying here is Shogun World, not Samurai World. What do you think about this?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Samurai World seemed to be the obvious one, but Shogun World has a much more. It involves more, right? If it was just Samurai World, it would just be Samurai World. It'd be like Westworld being called Cowboy World. There's more to it. Again, I we talked about this before after the season finale and the recap. I really hope that the bulk of the meat of the story stays in Westworld. There's just still so much of it to explore. And I thought it was a curious choice to actually expand into different worlds if they do that, because there's just, again, we've established that we've seen maybe 2 or 3 towns and a little bit of landscape in this entire world. And I'd love to see what else is lurking out there in Westworld.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because also the samurai warriors, I believe, it was so much earlier. I think it was in the 1100s, whereas the Shogun were ruling Japan, from the 1100s up till 1868, somewhere around that range. So it makes sense that if you're going to do something historical, you wouldn't go all the way back.
I like Gene's idea. I mean, possibly the Shogun World was just a nod to the movie where they show that there's extra worlds out there. But I think maybe the majority, I would like to see it stay within Westworld.
An interesting take on it is people talked about why Westworld, why choose the West as opposed to other things, and I think there was a consensus that the West world represented freedom and America, and it was something that was evocative of a feeling. You wanted to be free. You go to this place where you could do whatever you want. It's the Wild West. Perhaps Shogun World is, again, thematically very different, and that would be interesting to see in the sense that what are the themes, the overarching feeling, the overarching psychology of that feudal system versus the West, and maybe it appeals to a different kind of customer, and there are different rules.
How do you, I'm going to use a gaming term here, how do you nerf bladed weapons? In Westworld, we could build in the safeties into the munitions, into the weapons. Explosives could be controlled, by the command center and okayed to make sure there's no collateral damage. How do you make a katana safe for a family in a theme park?
Well, I mean, Gene is a big LARPer, so how do they do it in the LARP world, Gene?
Oh, well, typically, if you're doing, you would not use a solid blade, and then you would actually just wrap foam around it. You do foam swords. That's basically how you do it. And then the best part is the spellcasters. So you've got different types of battle that you can do in SEA and other forms of LARPing, and or actually they really hate if you call SEA LARPing because you don't actually have to be role playing. But in any event, you've got your archers, you've got people that fight with 2-handed weapons, 1-handed weapons. But my favorite by far, actually my least favorite by far, is the spellcasters, because they'll just carry beanbags. And then they'll yell out the spell and throw it at you. And that's like the dickest move, just get pelted by beanbags while somebody's yelling, the famous one is lightning bolt, but there's like sleep and death too. It's just like, that guy, come on, man, pick up something real. Have some fun.
Google or go to YouTube and do the LARPing lightning cast, or just do the spells. That lightning one is amazing.
Lightning bolt. There is a guy in that one that also casts death.
Listen, apologies. We're not laughing at the LARP community at all. This is
yes, I am.
Okay, all right.
Big D, I am officially laughing at LARPers.
Our next Westworld Telegraph comes in from Gillian. Gillian wrote a very nice, in-depth email, and sometimes here at the Westworld Telegraph we have to truncate it for space and time, but we do put everything on our website, shatontv.com. Just navigate to the Westworld Telegraph. You can see this in its entirety. It's a very well written email and thought here, but we're just going to pick out the best parts. So she goes on, she writes, "For a long time now, my coworker and I have talked about how people get stuck in life. There's one instance, be it a traumatic event or a happy or wanderlusty time. Examples might be your parents getting divorced, or your heartbreaking end of a relationship, or the untimely death of a loved one. But it is a life-defining moment for which people get stuck and cannot grow on from then. We started applying it to ourselves, connecting the dots or looking further inward and realizing each of us has a cornerstone for which we have not let go of, and it drives us or inhibits us. It creates drama or anxiety for us, and it is one part of the entirety of our soul. That's what I call it. And that prevents that piece from achieving its full potential. It was only now that I realized that is the maze. It is not a level of consciousness or a matter of any random choices. The maze is facing your cornerstone, what inhibits you from growing, and embracing that moment in time, then letting it go over the hold it has on you. And then Gillian did a very effective job of going into each of the characters' cornerstones and who overcame them, as well as those that faced them but couldn't quite overcome them. So she put out one for Dr. Ford and Dolores and all the other characters. So it's definitely worth reading, checking out. She then says, to recap, the maze is the point in which the person stops growing. It stops their pursuit of what life is about and stays stuck in a moment which they cannot accept and let go of. The maze is that life-defining moment that is so traumatic in its delivery you cannot process the situation correctly and get trapped in. To complete the maze is to confront that cornerstone, accept it, and let go over its hold over your mind and being. The rest of Westworld seasons, therefore, should be the journey of what happens after we've moved past our cornerstone, the doors it opens, and the possibilities and places it takes us. And a warning for what happens if we never move past our cornerstone and if we're locked into a changing world with an unchanging attitude. Thoughts, opinions, add-ons? Or is it just plain crazy? Help, as always, the one Boxo-loving, now dirty martini drinking Gillian.
Okay, so I always fall back to the thought that, yeah, it's a show about robots, sex, violence. I wonder if they're talking about the awakening and the goal to get through the maze, to become sentient, is an allegory to us in the real world, to being trapped in your loops, in your daily circle, in your we've talked about stratification being one of the big subtexts of Westworld, where they talk about the structure of the mesa or the entire, when they talk about the text, hey, know your role, know where you are, you can't do any better. We hear them, telling that to Maeve. I'm wondering if this is truly talking about us. And the fact that she talks about cornerstones, I remember the day, and I'm not condoning or promoting the use of drugs, but in college, I became a fan of mushrooms. And I found mushrooms were great. They're not harsh. Like, if you've never done mushrooms, the way I can tell it to you this: if you have a friend who just complains to you all the time about their relationship, oh, I don't know what's going on in my life, I don't know what's going on with my girlfriend, you're sitting there viewing it externally, you can give them the answer right away. You see what's going on. You're an outside observer. Mushrooms allowed me to kind of step out and to see what I was doing in my life and what my cornerstone was. From that point on, I think it helped me grow as a person and understand what my real underlying motivations for things that I do are and why I always get myself into the same situations. And to this day, I think I'm better for it. I'm not telling you to go do mushrooms, but having a self-awakening and being able to sit back and view yourself and think about why do you do things, it's healthy for anyone. So take up meditation if you don't want to do drugs.
As a counterpoint, I'd like to point out that I had the opposite experience with ecstasy. Ecstasy made me dumber. I guarantee you, I swear on my life that I was a smarter person before I did ecstasy, and my brain has never been quite the same. So, do with that what you will.
Two different things.
Yeah.
Don't expect to have any self-awakening in ecstasy. You might expect to wake up somewhere unknown if you do ecstasy, but you're not going to learn anything from it.
As a point, though, we discussed this before. It's always important to note that anytime you see sci-fi, that is a red flag that they are trying to tell you something other than the story that's directly in front of you. Sci-fi is, by definition, it's an allegory. Any sci-fi you watch is telling you something about the human condition. Look at Terminator 2, right? Terminator 2 is not really about Skynet or robots. It's more about humans being on the path to self-destruction, right? And what we could do, and when is it that what defines humanity? Transhumanism, as far as what is it? T100,
800,
T800
model
101.
Thank you. I knew Roger would have that. So again, anytime you see sci-fi, you should immediately be asking, what's the deeper message here? New shows like The Expanse. It's not about interplanetary warfare, rather, but there are deeper themes there. So keep that in
society.
mind. Yeah. So I think you're on the right path there, Gillian, where it's smart to be looking at how that applies to humans. Sorry, Raj.
No, absolutely. And again, I implore everyone, because she goes into depth into each character, and it would just be too long to read here. But this definitely belongs on a forum like Reddit or something like that, to where people can interact, or even on shatontv.com. So you can join the conversation there. There we have a comment section, everything like that. But this is, I think Gillian really hit the nail on the head here. So if that's a result of you drinking box wine or dirty martinis, Gillian, please continue. Maybe add some magic mushrooms to that, but not ecstasy. That's our advice here from Shat on TV.
No, we are not giving people advice.
We're not doing that? Okay,
no,
got it.
We're telling you, if you choose to do that, we won't judge you.
Right. All right.
Also, if you are going to eat magic mushrooms and you think it's a good idea to just throw them on top of your pizza and eat them, it really reduces the effect of them. So just skip the pizza part. I know it sounds delicious, but especially if you're out camping near Payson, Arizona, just don't do it.
Yeah, you want to eat the mushrooms on an empty stomach.
And I'll throw in my 2 rules. You have to be wearing comfortable clothes and truly like the people you are with.
Yeah. Gene and I go no clothes when we do magic mushrooms.
I wish that were a joke, but it's
Shut your fucking mouth.
We got our mushrooms and we're running around naked in the woods.
Yeah. In sandals.
Bullshit.
We are a walking
down
cliche,
rocks.
or a running cliche, I guess.
Or a running cliche.
Oh no, we weren't naked. We had those glow jewelry on.
That's right. We did have glow, and we had fanny packs covering our junk.
Fanny packs.
I can't tell whether or not you're serious.
No, we're dead serious.
This actually happened. It was how many guys? There were like 12 dudes.
12
and then
dudes.
What the?
12 dudes. We're all naked. We all got some sort of something like a sock or whatnot on our junk. And then there was one girl. And we each gave each other names. And we named her One Too Many. So that was her name. One Too Many.
Yeah.
What was mine?
Raj, you were Mortal Kombat.
I was Mortal Kombat.
When was this?
This
Last
was-
fall?
Yeah. No, it was the summer. It was during the summer. No, it was summer.
I don't know.
Anyway. Thanks so much for writing in, Gillian. Our next Westworld Telegraph comes in from Nick B. Nick B. writes, on a previous podcast, you all mentioned some surprise in Ed Harris getting picked up back for season 2. For me, it was clear that Ed would be back as a grown William Man in Black. All you have to do is to look how important William is going to play in this next chapter of Ford's story. Think about the last time Ford talked to William. It was after William had stabbed Dolores for not being able to fight back. William was frustrated that the world he loved so much was not real because the host couldn't fight back. Ford's response was that William would like the next chapter. Now, remember the last time we saw William. He had just been shot by one of the hosts, and he starts grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. For William, all that he ever wanted was to have the host be real and be able to fight back. Now it seems that his wishes come true, and a quick visit to the butcher shop will patch up his wounded arm. The last point is to look at what we saw happen to the rest of the board last time we saw them. They were all being shot by Dolores, and their wounds did not appear to be glancing wounds like William's. So, the show basically ends with the majority of board murdered, and William being the only surviving member. I think this is all part of the final play by Ford to give the host a chance to thrive while the board is sympathetic to the host's new disposition. William will act to cover up the deaths of the board members and will work to spin a new experience the part can provide. We have seen how well Ford can plan and manipulate situations to meet his desired outcomes. And I think William, being the only member on the board, will be essential to letting the host evolve into what Ford knows they can become. What are your thoughts on this? By the way, I don't think Ford would be so manipulative in life and then fail to set things in motion to operate according to his plan following his death. I'm looking to the many upcoming First Mondays, and again, this comes from Nick B.
Okay, we've established that Delos does not want the theme park. That's not what they're interested in, right? We've established there's something else they want out of here. People have said it's the ability to predict, to have learning machines, that people have said it's ability to swap consciousness. There's lots of different possibilities of what they're after. I'm not going to comment on that, but getting down to the point, what's going on here is that it's very feasible, Nick, that you're absolutely right, that even the death of all these board members is not enough to dissuade the investors or the stakeholders from what it is that they truly want. And maybe the man in black is in the best position. And maybe the host being awake is actually helpful in what they want out of this thing that makes it profitable.
So they're going to have to deal with the situation at hand in one way or another. You can't have the deaths of all the board members and all the guests go unnoticed. So we've seen before when Delos has an issue with one of their staff or a living human, how they would deal with it. Teresa, they make it conveniently look like an accident up near the woodcutter. Bashes brains in. Oh, she must have been up there investigating. She fell. She died. They could easily make this a case of a private plane goes down, takes them all with them, or the longer con would be to replace them with exact copies, which I think would be very hard to do unless they've been doing detailed study of each of the board members and their personalities to accurately replace them.
No, I mean, I think that makes sense. In terms of the journey in season 2, obviously you saw the TV show of Westworld. That was the whole plot, right? Is replacing people with liked robots into the world so they could, overthrow them. I don't know if William's going to do that or not, but could make for a good story.
You have to get William to buy in,
right,
into whatever their cover-up is. But we don't believe they're going to turn this into some form of standoff.
No.
Where it's going to be a military or it's going to be a conflict where the real world knows what's going on and they're going to try to squash the machine revolution. We don't think it's going to be that. Or at least I hope it's not going to be that. And the way you could get William to flip, potentially, he's wanted the robots to fight back. Maybe his true motivation is the hope that his Dolores, the Dolores that he loved and he fell for on that adventure that they took together, is still buried somewhere inside of Dolores, and that she was awake once before and she could become awake again. A true awake Dolores, who's almost reset back to that time that they spent together, could bring the good out in the Man in Black and make it so that he's okay with whatever goes on. But I think that's his true motivation. It isn't that he wants them to fight back and, some gladiator, give them a chance to make the humans suffer, more as it's a chance for him to recapture that love that he had and that loved one who he's lost.
I think you're onto something there, Big D. Thanks so much for writing in, Nick. Our last Westworld Telegraph comes in from Sarka. Sarka writes, when I started to watch Westworld, as many others, I was seeking out a podcast which would enhance my experience. I did listen to a few podcasts in the beginning, but it did not take long for me to realize that your podcast is the best fit for me. Not only do I enjoy the way how you analyze each episode, but I equally appreciate your dedication to your listeners' theories. Big D is very philosophical and seeks out the unseen higher meanings of things. Gene enjoys theories based on historical, religious, or mythical facts and exercises great knowledge of all those above. And Roger is just a lot of fun and likes daring out-of-the-box ideas which sometimes are in the tinfoil category. All of these qualities make the podcast unique to me. It reminds me of my own conversations with my friends in Europe on any form of art. Your podcast is a great addition to my commutes to work. Greetings from Chicago, and that's Sarka.
That's amazing, Sarka. Thank you so much for breaking it down. And I think that that is something that we, even discuss internally about the fact that each of us brings something a little bit different to the show. I'm obviously the junior member of the podcast, and therefore it was nice to find that there was a little niche for me. And I like that point that you brought up about Europe. And I'm always fascinated when we get mail or listeners in the UK or other parts of Europe or even in Australia. That always blows my mind, and it makes me wonder, is there something about what we're doing that it makes it more appealing, or do all American podcasts have that listenership abroad?
No, it's nice to hear the breakdown here, and I'm flattered. Thank you. When we started the podcast, it was just Roger and I, and we brought on, we brought Gene on for Lost Boys. Because he had some expertise in the goth scene and vampires, and we felt the chemistry was good. Had we already done one episode of Westworld at that point?
We had done the intro, and then we had also done the review of the movie, and then our predictions of the series, what would happen. But Gene was on from episode 1 forward.
So we brought him on, and I remember a close friend of mine who listens goes, "You guys got to get fucking rid of Gene. He is a condescending dick. I can't stand him." And we got a lot of email that was like, Gene's ruining the chemistry. Gene's this. And it hit me in this conversation. I said, no, we're American Idol. I said, because in the end, I said, do you agree with Gene? He goes, yes, I agree with him a lot, but he fuck, he's just a dick. And he said, he's like Simon Cowell. And I said, that's what we are. I said, you need that person who's maybe brutally honest, who is a little more analytical, a little more cut and dry and doesn't play nice with others. And then you have Roger, who's like Seacrest, you know, and he keeps it moving and bubbly and light. And I said, maybe I'm Paula Abdul, Randy, somewhere in the middle. But we hope that that mix comes along and works well, because we're honest with it. But if you do the hours, obviously you do, that we put into the podcast, that 3 episodes a week with the different personalities and the show fluctuating, you can hear it, I'm sure, in the cast. There were a few weeks that we were ready to kill each other. Absolutely kill each other. So the fact that we've made it and we've kind of found that happy balance, and that a listener like Sarka can hear it and appreciate it, it means a lot. And all our hours of therapy and group conversation and texting has not gone to waste.
I think it's interesting that Sarka points out that, you know, Big D is very philosophical, and that I exercise great knowledge of religious and mythical and historical. I think the funniest thing of all is that Big D and I will like shit all over an idea when we hear like a theory. We're like, no fucking way. And Raj is, you know, quote, out there doing the tinfoil shit. But I think more often than not, he's right, which freaks me out a lot, because he'll be like, no, I think this. And I go, there is no fucking way that's true. And then it ends up being true, which is like, you know, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, I've learned from Westworld, though, you can't gloat, regardless if you're right or not. You never gloat. You never spike the ball.
No, and the only thing that fucking drives me nuts about Roger is I could say, you know what? Pizza is really tasty. And he'll come back and be like, so what you're saying is spaghetti sucks. So what you're saying is, you know, hamburgers are bullshit. Is that what you're saying? I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I only said pizza is tasty.
Well, listen, Sarka, I love the email and the sentiments here, but it does seem as if she thinks you guys are the smart ones, and I'm just kind of like the dumb one who just keeps smiling.
Oh my God.
Oh, Sarka,
just you.
Did she just tell me? Did she just tell me that she likes pizza, and then I'm telling her that spaghetti is terrible?
Sarka, just you've learned it. Roger is very sensitive and he's needy, so you can add that to your list because you've just seen it.
Sarka, thank you so much for writing in. That's the end of our Westworld Telegraphs for the month of March. Again, we do this on the first Monday of every month, so you have, I don't know how many days are in March, 31 days in March? 31 days in March, yeah. So anyway, you have until the end of the month to send us in your emails, your thoughts, any news, stuff that you want to talk about with Westworld, to where we can release. We want to keep this going, so the more content, the better for you, the listeners.
Can I make a recommendation, Raj?
Sure.
Why don't we try to schedule one of those 2 interviews?
Oh, yeah.
In one of these months?
Yeah, I will definitely work on that. Yeah, we're going to reach out to, we've already reached out to Leonardo Nam and to our boy Louis Hertham to get them on the show. So that's what we're also doing. Anything else before we close the Westworld Telegraph and get ready for next month?
Yes, I have something.
Oh,
yes. We've discussed here that's going to be a long time until we get Westworld coming back. So we have to find shows to fill the gap. We do Shat the movies every week. So we've decided to pick up a show, you know, at the behest of one of our listeners, and we kind of put feelers out. And, you know, we said we want to do shows that we like and that are quality. We don't ever want to chase numbers. And we looked kind of at what's out there, and we said, what are we going to do? We have a huge gap until October of 18. So is there any show out there that, you know, is a quality program that we're all going to watch that might fill that gap?
Well, for me, if we were going to do another show, it's got to fit a couple of requirements, right? It has to not coincide with any shows that we're currently doing, which is Taboo and American Gods and Westworld. Based on that scheduling, we have to find something that, you know, probably is like in the summer months. And if it were me, I would just love to maximize my HBO Now subscription.
I think in addition to that, it's got to be something that we've all, rather than taking on a new show that we'd have to commit to, because now you got to remember, we're committed to Westworld, we're committed to Taboo for future seasons, and then we have American Gods coming up, so we're going to commit to that as well, which we can expect to have a several. So if we do too many new shows, we're going to have, we're going to run into the issue where we're committed to several shows for a very long time. They might overlap later in the schedule. So to me, it was something that I'm already watching and caught up on. That was a really, really important factor.
Yeah, so with that, I think we can say it. We're gonna do Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's good timing too, because this is the final season. They're off book. We have, the three of us collectively have never read the books. So if there's any season to do, it's the final season. Plus, it'll lead into Westworld, and with it being Shat on TV, Shat on entertainment. Big D, you came up with the most brilliant of names for our Game of Thrones series.
We're going to be calling it On the Throne, the unofficial podcast companion for Game of Thrones.
One of the really interesting things, too, is you can't really see this at home, but I've been told I bear somewhat of a resemblance to Jon Snow, and so I'll be doing it in full cosplay each episode. You can expect that, unless he dies like in the first one. I'll still do it. Fuck it.
He comes back. Yeah, so I'm excited about this. I had my apprehensions of the three of us. I was not totally convinced until we started making logos this weekend, and then I was totally on board. But listen, we know that you have a lot of podcast options. You might have already been married to one for Game of Thrones, and that's fine. But we hope that you'll follow us and you'll check us out. We hope that you liked us enough for Westworld to check out our Game of Thrones coverage. We'll have a very similar spin as what we've done, and we hope to do a very similar format where we do a deep dive analysis and a fan email recap show, and if the numbers permit it, maybe even an Instacast. So that's what we're going to be. That's what you can look forward to doing.
Also, big thank you to everyone who responded on Snapchat when I put a little feeler out there to say, would you be interested in us doing Game of Thrones? I got all sorts of resounding yeses. Someone even sent a video of their dog saying yes, so that was really cool. But anyway, yeah, again, if you're not following us on Snapchat, it's Shat on TV is the username, and get on there, because we do ask stuff like that. You might just see me taking fresh out of the shower pictures at 3 a.m. Who knows?
Yeah, and so people don't think this is just us trying to latch on to another big hit show. We have all been with the show since the beginning, and there's 3 or 4 podcasts that I follow about Game of Thrones, and I'll probably still continue to do that. This is coming out of a love of the actual material, and now that we have the time, because we didn't want to have to try to schedule this really in if Westworld came back, and are they going to switch up the days, when are they going to air? So it was a perfect opportunity, matched with the fact that we loved the show.
Yeah, the puzzle pieces just fit in nicely based on the other shows that we're doing. So, and we know that there's going to be a finale. We know it's going to end at the end of October, in the summer of 2018.
Well, and that's going back to right now. The release date, the air date, isn't been published, but the cast, I forget who it was recently that was being interviewed, whether it was Davos, who said that he let it out that it was going to be July.
Okay.
So rumor has it will be either the second or the third Sunday in July.
Right.
So we'll see. But that being said, we're going to do a little quick intro cast after we record now to get the Game of Thrones feed up and running, so that you can, after you listen to this, just click the link in the notes and go over there and subscribe. So when the show comes around, we'll be ready to go and in your phone, device, wherever you listen to us.
Yep, absolutely. Again, search for On the Throne. So anyway, and we'll put the link in the show notes.
Not to plug too many other things, but also, if you have not been listening to Shat the Movies, which was our original podcast about movies, our most popular episode was Pulp Fiction, which we just did, the most downloaded, and it's currently available. So go check it out if you're a big fan of Pulp Fiction or Quentin Tarantino. It's our highest rated movie. We give it perfect scores all around, and it's really some of our best work. So I highly recommend going and check that out. And if you hate it, you never have to listen to Shat the Movies again. Promise.
And also, you'll get to learn from Gene the breakdown of a sub-dom lifestyle and whether the GIMP actually lived in the box, how he got in there, the breakdown of when you should unzip the mask. Very informative.
Sanka, I was kind of surprised, actually, that you didn't note among my attributes and qualities that I also bring a great knowledge of sexual deviance and sub-dom relationships.
Yeah, but we don't always talk about that in the TV.
We fucking should.
The movies is when your perversions come out. When you peacock, when you let the real gene just fly.
Well, that concludes this month's episode of Shat on TV Westworld Telegraph. However, we will be continuing on with American Gods as well. That debuts on April 30th. So be sure to subscribe for that. You can follow us on social media. In addition to Snapchat, we're on Twitter and Instagram at Shat on TV. Search for us on Facebook, Shat on TV Podcast. Our website, again, is shatontv.com. That email address, hosts at shatontv.com. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. Big D, we just reached the 10 million minutes listened to on YouTube. That's pretty badass, and the YouTube community, we're pretty respondent. Like Big D, myself, Gene, we all hop on YouTube and join in the conversation there, so that's another thing. So if you're a YouTube listener, thank you so much. You can also check out our store for cool Shat on TV merchandise. That's on the website. That helps keep the lights on. On behalf of my co-host, Big D Dick Ebert and Gene Lyons, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next month for another Westworld Telegraph. Take care. Good night.